and my thinking is that cavalier clothing are more fancier than pilgrim clothing because the cavaliers got more money than the pilgrims.
Can you say more about that?
It's not because of the money that they got more fancier clothes. It's because people in the place, people like their clothing more than the pilgrims.
I agree with you because when you look at this picture on Cavalier clothing, page 16, you see a guy dressing fancy.
Jeremy, I'm disagreeing with you a little bit when you say it's not about the money. I think it is about the money because the pilgrims, like, they low class, and the cavaliers, like, they higher class than the pilgrims. And if you need money to get fancy clothes, just like nowadays, like we need money to get fancy clothes, shoes, and stuff that we want, and that's what they had to do back then to get the people to make their clothes. So I'm disagreeing with you a little bit.
Yeah, but mostly the pilgrims, they don't really care about getting fancy clothes, because just as long as they're following the religion of, because I read in a different book of clothing that pilgrims wore clothes depending on what they believe.
Yeah, going back to Jaden, I agree with you that they used to sew clothes because on page 14, it shows a girl sewing clothes, and it has a caption. It says, "This picture shows a pilgrim woman spinning wool into yarn to make clothes for the winter."
That only proves that the theory is that they had to make their own clothes in colonial times, or they had to go to a tailor to make their clothes. But the tailor in both of them, they didn't have that much stuff anyway. So like that only proves more than one thing. That it also says that life in colonial time was very difficult.
I'm agreeing with you, but then again I'm disagreeing because not everybody had to make their own clothes. Like the Cavalier, they didn't make their own clothes. They went to people, and the Cavaliers gave the people money, and that's when they sold their clothes. And then the Pilgrims, they make their own clothes. And on page 14, with the Pilgrim woman is spinning the wool and making it into clothing, and like they had, like the Pilgrims, that's what they had to do. But the Cavaliers, they don't do that.
I agree with you because that's what Miss Hanley said a couple of days ago, that if you didn't have the time to make your own clothing, that you had to go to something called a black market, and a tailor would have to make the clothing for you, but you had to pay him a lot of money.
That going back to Jaden's idea, I agree with him because a lot of people don't have to sew clothes because children don't know how to sew. Only like the women sew clothes.
I agree with you, but I'm thinking like to make the Cavaliers fancy too, that the wigs on page 16, like it's saying that they had to get the lice out of the wigs and stuff so that the Cavalier men could put it on. And I think that is making them fancy because they're having nice hairstyles and fancy clothes and shoes and things like that.
I agree with you, and I'm thinking that the Cavaliers or anyone in colonial America that makes, in colonial times, that makes clothes, that the most important thing that they think about is their kids because they have to make clothes for themselves, and sometimes they might not have time to make clothes for themselves. They have to buy it.
But like some kids like within our ages had to make their own clothing because when kids are 11, they go to college, and like when they finish with that, they actually after they're done with college, they're actually after like 12 or 13 years old, they're actually, instead of like what you say today is teenagers, to like back then when they're 12 or 13, they're actually adults. So some kids really had to make their own clothes by that age.